Welcome to Michigan in Focus. I'm Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for the Center Square. And joining me today is the Center Square's Michigan reporter, Scott McClellan. We're recording this on March 9th, a Thursday, and last night, March 8th, the Michigan House of Representatives were busy little beavers. They passed a flurry of bills, and jump in, Scott, and tell us exactly what those bills were.
So the Michigan House approved House Bill 4003 on a 65 to 45 vote. The bill adds LGBTQ protections to the state's Civil Rights Act. So that's the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discriminatory practices based on religion, race, color, age, sex, and more. But this legislation really just codified what the Michigan Civil Rights Commission said in 2018, that discrimination based on sex includes sexual orientation. In July of 2022, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that interpretation was valid.
Now, there was some pushback from Republicans on this. I suppose fears that we may get some type of Colorado cake baker type of pushback from individuals that don't want to cater to the LGBTQ crowd. They were pretty much shut down. They were told that they could not do that.
Republicans offered more than 10 failed amendments, and one of them wanted to exempt religious groups when they are acting on, quote, sincerely held religious beliefs.
By that, they would mean Roman Catholic objections to, say, same-sex marriage ceremony or in participating in that in one way, shape, or form. Like I said, the Colorado baker who refuses to make cakes and whatnot for gay weddings. So the Democrats kind of shot that down. And what were some of their stated reasons?
That's a good question. I'm not totally sure. They shot down the amendments without really saying anything about them. So they just, because Democrats have the majority, they don't have to really bargain with Republicans, at least in this bill.
Understandable. As you said before, I mean, it's more or less just codifying something that was already part of the law and already part of the practice anyway. So this shouldn't come as a complete and total surprise. It's not really like pulling the rug off of underneath anybody or their rights here in Michigan thus far. But you can bet your bottom dollar that there will probably be lawsuits and there will be people who have their legal rights offended or hurt in some way, shape, or form when someone who professes, air quotes around this, sincerely held religious beliefs, that they shouldn't be forced to participate in a commercial transaction because of their sincerely held religious beliefs.
Yeah, I think that's likely going to happen in the future.
So one of the other bills that the House passed last night, and it was along strictly partisan lines, was a measure to expand firearm background checks to include rifles and shotguns. And that passed with 56 Democrats voting for the bill, while 53 Republicans voted against it. Michigan already has a background check requirement that only applies to handguns, but this law that was passed on Wednesday by the House will, if it's approved by the Senate and signed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer, as it's pretty much anticipated it will happen, will expand background checks for long guns that are sold at gun shows or through private transfers. And there will, of course, be exemptions. One is provided for firearms that are intended for hunters under the age of 21. And additionally, current owners of firearms, long guns, will not be required to undergo a background check for long guns that are already in their possession. And it's totally fine to transfer a rifle or a shotgun from one family member to another. So those things will not be part of the equation. So those are the exemptions that were clearly stated. And a lot of this is in the aftermath of what happened at Michigan State and Berkey Hall on February 13th, which interestingly enough had nothing whatsoever to do with a rifle or a shotgun, because the perp, and I say the perp because I don't like using the name of individuals to give them celebrity for doing heinous crimes, used a 9mm pistol. So I did a story on this today where I quoted Representative Brian DeGaulle. He's from Owasso, and he's the former Shiawassee County Sheriff. And he said that the bills will spur unintended consequences for law-abiding gun owners. And he said that law-abiding gun owners are going to be expected to follow these new laws, while criminals and mass shooters will continue to not respect them. So the answer to the tragedies we have seen is not more laws that curtail constitutional freedoms. Laws we have that could have stopped the type of senseless violence were not respected or enforced. Apparently, the majority of Michiganders polled want something to be done. And the Michigan Democratic Party chairwoman, LaVara Barnes, applauded the passage of House Bill 4138. And she said that communities across Michigan are demanding action to stop the needless gun violence that devastates families throughout our state. Instead of offering empty thoughts and prayers, Michigan Democrats delivered. Background checks are a common sense piece of gun violence prevention that will help keep our neighborhoods safe while respecting Second Amendment rights. Then she continues, shame on Republicans for sitting on the sidelines as Michigan families experience needless tragedy and suffering at the hands of mass shootings and violence in our streets. Again, I'm left kind of scratching my head because I'm not really sure, and you might know a little bit more about this, Scott. I'm not really sure how many long guns have been used in any of the recent tragedies that Ms. Barnes is talking about.
I could be wrong, but I don't think, not in the last couple of years. The last couple mass shootings in Michigan have all been with pistols.
Right. So again, there will be another tragedy, and then there will be a lot of saber rattling and lancing. And I am not a Second Amendment scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but I just imagine that this debate will continue and will probably never actually be resolved to anyone's 100% satisfaction. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com for more stories from Scott McClellan. This is Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for the Center Square. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.